Van Nuys Airport, 12 o'clock high, 1949. Under the California sun, the San Fernando Valley was quiet until Hollywood's cameras turned it into wartime England. Van Nuys Airport, today one of the busiest private airfields in the country, once became the stage for one of the most authentic World War II films ever made, 12 o'clock high. Released in 1949, the film starred Gregory Peck as Brigadier General Frank Savage, a commander burdened by leadership, loss, and the impossible task of sending young men into danger. Director Henry King and the production team needed realism, not painted backdrops or model planes, but real bombers, real bases, and real skies. Van Nuys offered it all. Its broad runways and hangars closely resembled the 8th Air Force bases in wartime England. With cooperation from the U.S. Army Air Forces, several B-17 bombers were flown in, their engines echoing through the valley. Residents nearby recalled seeing massive formations of planes circling overhead, explosions of dust mimicking bomb strikes, and smoke rising from the tarmac as extras ran for cover. For weeks, the small airport became a war zone, minus the casualties. Locals flocked to nearby hills just to glimpse the action. Newspapers from 1949 described the spectacle as England by way of Los Angeles, noting how surreal it was to see Gregory Peck directing imaginary airmen only a few years after the real war had ended. When filming wrapped, the illusion vanished. The bombers flew off. The smoke cleared. Van Nuys returned to its daily rhythm: civilian planes, flight schools, and clear blue skies. Yet for film historians, the airfield still holds significance. It wasn't just a backdrop, it was a bridge between reality and cinema, a space where America's fresh memories of war turned into moving art. Gregory Peck later said of the film, "It wasn't about glory, it was about endurance." Oxnard Airfield, Flying Leathernecks, 1951. In the early 1950s, the sleepy farmland of Ventura County awoke to a thunder it had never known before, not from war, but from Hollywood. Oxnard Airfield, a modest patch of open land north of Los Angeles, was transformed into a Pacific war zone for flying leathernecks, RKO's sweeping portrayal of Marine aviators in the Second World War. Directed by Nicholas Ray and released in 1951, the film starred John Wayne as Major Dan Kirby, a no-nonsense leader commanding his squadron through exhaustion, duty, and sacrifice. The U.S. Marine Corps offered full cooperation, providing real aircraft, flight crews, and military advisors. For weeks, Wayne and co-star Robert Ryan moved through clouds of dust and smoke as vintage Grumman fighters took off and landed just a few yards away. Ventura locals gathered behind temporary fences, watching what looked like real dogfights unfolding over their fields. Wayne, known for his stoic presence, spent much of the shoot interacting with real Marines on site, studying their mannerisms, their tone, their discipline. The authenticity paid off. The aerial footage was strikingly realistic for its time, using both practical effects and live flight sequences filmed right above the Oxnard countryside. One local newspaper headline from 1951 read, "Marines bring the Pacific War to Ventura. Cameras roll as John Wayne leads the charge." Farmers who lent their land for staging areas later joked that their soil saw more explosions in a month than in a lifetime. But beyond spectacle, Flying Leathernecks captured something deeper: America's transition from real war to remembrance. Just 6 years after the fighting had ended, audiences weren't looking for adventure. They were searching for understanding. When the film wrapped, the airfield returned to silence. Within a decade, development overtook the site, and the runways disappeared beneath suburban streets. Palm Springs Army Airfield, Strategic Air Command, 1955. The desert has a strange way of holding memories, dry, endless, and timeless. In the mid-1950s, under the relentless California sun, one of those memories was reborn at Palm Springs Army Airfield. Before it became a glamorous gateway for tourists and celebrities, this stretch of desert was once a World War II training base. By 1955, it became the backdrop for one of Hollywood's most personal aviation dramas, Strategic Air Command. Directed by Anthony Mann and starring James Stewart alongside June Allison, the film wasn't just about airplanes or military might. It was about duty, aging, and the toll of service, themes that struck close to Stewart's heart. A decorated World War II bomber pilot himself, Stewart returned to the skies not as a soldier, but as an actor reliving echoes of his own past. Filming at Palm Springs offered realism no soundstage could match. The production team collaborated with the U.S. Air Force, filming actual B-36 and B-47 bombers against the vast desert sky. The heat was brutal. Camera operators wrapped their equipment in wet towels to keep them from overheating, and actors worked under the punishing glare of 100-degree days. During one take, Stewart reportedly paused between flights, staring silently at the horizon. A crew member later recalled, "He wasn't acting then, he was remembering." The film's cinematography, praised for its scale and sincerity, made audiences feel the weight of both the aircraft and the emotions they carried. When Strategic Air Command premiered, critics noted how grounded it felt, both literally and spiritually. Today, that same airfield thrives as Palm Springs International Airport, its wartime origins largely forgotten beneath layers of modern glass and asphalt. Yet, for those who know its history, every departing flight carries a trace of that era. Hamilton Air Force Base, the bridges at Toko-Ri, 1954. In the rolling hills of Marin County, just north of San Francisco, stood Hamilton Air Force Base, once a proud military hub, later the heart of one of Hollywood's most haunting war dramas. In 1954, director Mark Robson and producer William Perlberg brought The Bridges at Toko-Ri to life, a film that asked not about victory, but about the cost of duty. Starring William Holden and Grace Kelly, it told the story of an American pilot during the Korean War, torn between family and obligation. Hamilton Air Force Base was chosen for its realism. The Navy and Air Force both offered full cooperation, providing access to jets, carriers, and personnel. For weeks, the base transformed into a bustling film set. Fighter jets lined the runway, crews moved with military precision, and Hollywood's finest actors lived among real servicemen. William Holden, known for his intense preparation, spent long hours talking with pilots and technicians. He wanted to understand the mindset of men who faced danger daily, not just wear their uniforms. His dedication showed. When the film premiered, critics praised Holden's authenticity, noting that he looked as though he had truly lived every moment in that cockpit. Grace Kelly's quiet presence brought emotional gravity to the story. Between takes, she was often seen standing near the runways, watching the jets roar into the sky, symbols of beauty and fragility colliding. Filming at Hamilton blurred the boundary between drama and documentary. Many scenes featured real pilots performing real maneuvers, capturing the precision and peril of flight in ways no special effect could replicate. The base itself closed decades later, its hangars and barracks replaced by quiet suburban streets and restored Art Deco buildings. Yet its spirit remains. Locals still recall the days when Hollywood and the military shared the same sky. Santa Monica Airport dive bomber, 1941. Before the age of sprawling boulevards and modern skylines, Santa Monica Airport was a modest patch of runway overlooking the Pacific. In the late 1930s, it was known simply as Clover Field, a hub for early aviation pioneers and a favorite playground for daring test pilots. But in 1941, it would take on a very different role, that of a movie star. Warner Brothers transformed the airfield into a living stage for Dive Bomber, one of the last major aviation films released before the United States entered the Second World War. Directed by Michael Curtis, the same visionary who would later direct Casablanca, the film starred Errol Flynn and Fred MacMurray, two of the era's brightest names. Unlike many of Hollywood's patriotic pictures that came later, Dive Bomber wasn't about battle. It was about science, courage, and humanity, telling the story of Navy pilots and doctors struggling to understand the causes of high-altitude blackouts. The production relied heavily on real aircraft, real Navy collaboration, and real flying sequences filmed directly above the runways of Santa Monica. Technicolor cameras captured every shimmer of sunlight on the plane's wings. Locals gathered on rooftops and along fences to watch the spectacle, streaks of orange and silver darting across the sky. A young boy who witnessed the filming later recalled, "It was like watching birds made of fire." Released months before Pearl Harbor, Dive Bomber was both thrilling and unknowingly prophetic. Audiences saw it as escapism, unaware that within a year, those same aircraft and uniforms would no longer be props, but part of a very real war. Today, Santa Monica Airport remains active, though surrounded by urban life, its runways shortened, and its role transformed. Camarillo Airport, Catch-22, 1970. By the dawn of the 1970s, Hollywood's vision of war had changed. Gone were the simple heroics and polished patriotism of the 40s. What remained was irony, absurdity, and a deep questioning of purpose, and no film captured that better than Catch-22. Directed by Mike Nichols and released in 1970, Catch-22 brought Joseph Heller's darkly comic novel to life. To recreate the surreal chaos of the Second World War's Mediterranean air bases, Nichols needed something rare, an airfield big enough to stage entire fleets, yet quiet enough to control completely. He found it in the former Ventura County Airport, also known as Camarillo Army Airfield during World War II, which by then had become a sleepy regional airport, renamed Camarillo Airport in the early 1950s. The airport became a massive film set. Over a dozen restored B-25 bombers were flown in, each painted and numbered to resemble wartime aircraft. Pilots and mechanics, many of them aviation enthusiasts, spent months preparing the planes. The skies above Ventura County once again filled with the thunder of engines, though this time in service of satire, not heroism. The scale of production was staggering. Entire mock bases were built on site, complete with barracks, control towers, and anti-aircraft installations. The desert winds blew through tents, scattering sand across runways, giving every frame an authentic texture of disarray. Alan Arkin, who played Captain Yossarian, later said filming at Camarillo felt like living inside a fever dream, part comedy, part nightmare. Director Mike Nichols agreed, remarking, "It looked like madness, and that's exactly what it needed to be." When filming ended, the bombers departed, leaving behind an airport forever changed. The runways went quiet again, the temporary barracks dismantled, the dust settling over the footprints of actors and airmen alike. Today, Camarillo Airport serves civilian pilots, its wartime structures replaced by hangars and flying clubs.